She thought the prison gates were the worst thing that could happen to her. She was wrong. The moment a powerful gang paid millions to take her away, she stopped being a prisoner and became something far more dangerous, a weapon. Hidden behind the bruises, silence, and fear was a woman nobody truly understood. They saw her as weak, disposable, easy to control. But every humiliation, every act of cruelty pushed her closer to the edge. And when the truth about why she was targeted finally surfaced, the city would drown in blood, guilt, and regret. The question is, who really created the monster they were so terrified of? Before the prison walls, before the bloodshed, Lena Carter lived a quiet life on the south side of the city. She worked long hours, cleaning hotel rooms while raising her younger brother after their mother passed away. Every day felt like survival. Bills stacked up on the kitchen table, landlords made threats, and strangers looked at her like she didn't belong anywhere except the neighborhoods. People avoided driving through at night, but Lena had learned something early. People judged her before she even spoke. In expensive stores, security guards followed her through aisles. Police cars slowed beside her when she walked home from work. Even when she stayed silent, trouble somehow found its way to her. Still, she kept going. She avoided fights, avoided gangs, avoided the streets that swallowed so many people around her. All she wanted was enough money to escape the city, with her brother, and finally breathe, without fear. Then one night, everything changed. A wealthy businessman was attacked outside a nightclub, and within hours, the police flooded Lena's neighborhood searching for suspects. Witnesses barely described the attacker, but somehow officers ended up at her apartment door. No evidence, no warning, just cold stares, rough hands, and assumptions she had seen her entire life. The headlines came fast. Dangerous woman, violent criminal, another threat off the streets. But Lena knew the truth didn't matter anymore, because somewhere behind those prison walls, powerful people had already decided exactly what they wanted her to become. The first week inside prison felt like a slow death. Lena quickly realized she wasn't treated like the other inmates. Guards searched her cell more often. Meals mysteriously disappeared before reaching her tray. Every complaint she made was ignored. Some officers laughed openly when other prisoners shoved her in crowded hallways. To them, she wasn't a person. She was another dangerous girl from the streets, a label they had already burned into her identity before she ever stepped into a courtroom. And outside those walls, the media made things worse. News channels replayed her mugshot every night. Comment sections filled with strangers calling her violent, savage, and guilty before any trial had even begun. Nobody cared that there was no evidence tying her to the attack. Nobody questioned why witnesses kept changing their stories. The city had already chosen who to blame. Lena tried to survive quietly. Head down, no trouble. But prison had its own rules. One night, during lockdown, a fight exploded in the cell block. Screams echoed through the concrete halls as guards stormed in wearing riot gear. In the chaos, Lena watched officers pin an older, black inmate to the ground while others stood back pretending not to see. The woman stopped moving, yet the beating continued. Cold, mechanical, like it was normal. That was the moment something inside Lena began to crack. Fear slowly turned into anger. Days later, she was taken from her cell without explanation and brought into a private room deep inside the prison. Waiting for her were men in expensive suits, men who clearly didn't belong there. One of them slid photographs across the table, pictures of her younger brother walking home from school, standing outside their apartment. Completely unaware he was being watched, Lena's blood ran cold. The message was clear without a single threat being spoken aloud. They owned her now. The men worked for a powerful criminal organization, connected to wealthy businessmen, corrupt officers, and politicians across the city. They didn't care whether Lena was innocent. In fact, innocence made her more useful. Someone desperate, someone angry, someone society had already discarded. Over the next few weeks, her life transformed into something terrifying. She was secretly moved to isolated prison areas, where certain guards trained inmates to fight for money. Illegal fights, brutal fights, the kind powerful people gambled on behind locked doors. Lena resisted at first, refusing to hurt anyone. But resistance only brought punishment. Sleepless nights, starvation, threats against her brother. And slowly, survival took over. The same people who once mocked her now watched in silence. as she learned faster than anyone expected. Every hit she endured hardened her. Every humiliation burned away the fear she once carried. The prison that was meant to break her was turning her into something else entirely, something dangerous. Meanwhile, whispers about Lena spread beyond the prison walls. Underground gamblers started calling her the Ghost because opponents entered the ring confident and left broken. Wealthy spectators cheered, while pretending they weren't funding human suffering. To them, Lena was entertainment, another body to profit from, but nobody noticed the rage building behind her eyes. Then came the night everything changed. During one underground fight, Lena recognized a man sitting behind the glass balcony overlooking the arena. Expensive watch, silver tie, calm expression. The same businessman she had supposedly attacked. Alive. Healthy. Watching her fight like he already knew exactly who she was. In that instant, Lena understood the horrifying truth. She had never been arrested because she fit the crime. She had been chosen. The next fight was different. The underground arena felt heavier that night, thick with smoke, money, and silence. Wealthy spectators filled the balconies above the cage, laughing and drinking while prisoners below bled for their entertainment. Lena stood in the center under the blinding lights, bruised knuckles trembling as chains rattled behind the steel doors. Then she saw him again. The businessman sat calmly in the front row this time, surrounded by armed guards and powerful men in expensive suits. The same man whose fake attack had destroyed her life. The same man who watched her suffer while the world called her a criminal. And suddenly, every painful moment came crashing into her mind at once. The police dragging her from her apartment. The guards treating her like an animal. The news twisting her face into a symbol of violence. The way society looked at her skin color and decided guilt before truth. It had never been about justice. She was chosen because nobody powerful believed a woman like her would survive long enough to fight back. The crowd roared as the cage locked shut. Across from Lena stood another fighter twice her size, pushed into the ring to finish her once and for all. Blood stained the floor beneath their feet. The bell rang. What happened next shocked everyone watching. Lena stopped fighting for survival. She fought with rage. Every strike carried years of humiliation and pain behind it. The arena erupted into chaos as the larger fighter crashed to the ground. Spectators who once cheered now stared in silence. For the first time, the powerful men watching from above looked nervous, because Lena wasn't broken anymore. She was exposing them. Then, in the middle of the roaring crowd, one terrified guard made a mistake. Trying to stop her, he shouted the truth loud, enough for nearby spectators to hear. That the entire case against Lena had been planned from the beginning. A setup designed to turn disposable people into profitable weapons for the organization. And suddenly phones came out. People started recording. Panic spread across the balconies. The powerful men who once controlled everything realized the nightmare they feared most had finally begun. The world was watching now. Within hours, videos from the underground arena flooded the internet. Millions watched the recordings in shock as powerful businessmen, prison officials, and corrupt officers were exposed in front of the world. The same media stations that once called Lena a violent criminal suddenly changed their headlines overnight. Investigations began. Arrests followed. People who believed they were untouchable finally faced public scrutiny. But for Lena, freedom did not feel simple. Weeks later, when she finally walked out of prison, cameras waited outside the gates. Reporters shouted questions. Protesters held signs with some called her a survivor. Others still looked at her with fear, unable to separate the woman from the monster they had watched the system create. Because scars like hers do not disappear when prison doors open. The nightmares stayed. The anger stayed. The memory of being judged guilty, before anyone cared about the truth, stayed with her most of all. And that was the real horror. Lena's story wasn't just about one corrupt organization. It was about how easily society can destroy someone when prejudice becomes stronger than justice. How quickly people believe the worst about someone because of where they come from, how they look, or the color of their skin. The people who targeted Lena thought nobody would care if she disappeared. They believed the system would protect them because it always had before. But this time the world saw everything. And maybe that is what frightened them most. Because when injustice is finally exposed, silence becomes impossible. So the next time you see a headline, a mugshot, or a person society labels as dangerous, ask yourself one question. Are you seeing the truth, or just the version the world wants you to believe?